if Bruce Lee really could beat me in a fight, I would really say this is an interesting world because that should not happen.
Welcome to Bruce Lee Real Fight channel. When we talk about Mike Tyson, every fight fan knows who he is. He is considered one of the best heavyweight fighters of all time, nicknamed Iron Mike and Kid Dynamite in his early career, and later known as the baddest man on the planet or the baddest man on earth. Mike Tyson made his professional debut at the age of 18 in March 1985. His first opponent was Hector Mercedes. In November 1986, Mike Tyson became the youngest man to win a share of the heavyweight title. He then fought in the ring all the way until June 2005. His career record was 50 wins with 44 knockouts, 6 losses. With these records, Mike Tyson was well known for his knockout power and also holds the third longest unified championship reign in heavyweight history at 8 consecutive defenses. In 2006, Mike Tyson retired from professional boxing after being knocked out in the consecutive matches against Danny Williams in 2004 and Kevin McBride in 2005. However, he is still considered one of the best heavyweights of all time. He was ranked 16 on the Ring's list of 100 greatest punchers of all time and was ranked number 1 in the ESPN.com list of the hardest hitters in heavyweight history. British TV sports channel Sky Sports described him as perhaps the most ferocious fighter to step into a professional ring. Being one of the best in fighting history, Mike Tyson was often asked, would Bruce Lee at his peak be able to contend with him? During an interview in 2017, Mike Tyson said Bruce Lee has an awesome philosophy in fighting. He also described Bruce Lee as a killer, and here's the interview.
Hurt your man, do as much damage you can and get out. You know what I mean? Without being hurt. Less damage on yourself as possible. I used to have so much respect for his philosophy. His philosophy is like the ultimate warrior philosophy. Wow, this is deep. This really gets me deep when I talk about Bruce.
That was the interview of Mike Tyson in 2017. 2 years later in 2019, during an interview with Ariel Helwani on ESPN MMA show, he was once again asked about Bruce Lee, and the question is, in his prime, who would have won in a no-holds-barred fight, Mike Tyson or Bruce Lee? I picked you, was I right? And guess what Mike's answer is? Let's watch the interview together.
Thank you very much, thank you very much, thank you very much. Hey, I like to think you're right too. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'll be listening. If Bruce Lee really could beat me in a fight, I would really think an interesting world, because that should not happen.
Well, it's anything goes, so he could kick, he could knee, he could do a bunch of stuff. You could just punch.
So that's almost like me and Floyd having a street fight. He's the same size as Floyd. No, he's 135 pounds. What's the guy Davis' name? Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, Tank.
That's me and Tank fighting. Well, you tell me no, that's no me and Tank fighting. Tank got the greatest skills in the world. I'm watching out. He's fighting me. Me and Tank.
Obviously, you would win if it's a boxing match, but I thought maybe...
No.
Oh.
It's an all-out fight. Me and Tank can fight.
Oh, I pick you over any of those guys. That's why I picked you over Bruce Lee.
I'm not saying disrespectful or egotistically.
No.
This is me and Tank. This is the size difference. Me and Tank fighting. And Tank is the greatest martial artist in the world.
From this interview, we can see that Mike Tyson did pay his respects to Bruce Lee, although he thinks size does matters. He keeps saying Bruce has awesome philosophy in fighting, and we believe he learned a couple things from Bruce Lee. In November 28, 2020, Mike Tyson is returning to the ring to have a boxing match against Roy Jones Jr. He is undergoing electric muscle stimulation, and Bruce Lee also used it to train his muscle in the 60s. In 1971, Bruce Lee taught a Jeet Kune Do lesson in Long Street. He taught to use whatever things you have available to you. He also thought that biting in close quarters is an effective attack.
If you wish to survive, what do you do?
I don't know. Bite.
So, do you think Mike Tyson learned it from Bruce Lee? Mike Tyson is 5 feet 10, 178 centimeters tall and 240 pounds. He fought in the heavyweight division, so naturally he had a lot of power in his hands, so he would win many people with one well-placed punch. For example, he was able to knock out men like Larry Holmes in the 4th round and Michael Spinks in the very first round. Bruce Lee is 5 feet 8, 172 centimeters tall and 135 pounds. He fought on the street and had a lot of power in both of his hands and legs. He was trained solely to look for a weakness throughout the entire body of his opponent. If someone went charging at Bruce Lee, there was a chance he would be hit by Bruce Lee with a hard blow on the groin or finger jabs to the eyes, or even a powerful sweeping kick to the knee or shin as he was approaching. Bruce quite possibly would even snap his opponent's kneecap. You don't have to be as powerful as Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali to do this. These are part of the human body that has great weakness. If performed accurately enough, any of these moves would be quite devastating to anyone. These methods would come very natural for Bruce Lee because he solely trained in martial arts for street fighting. His quickness combined with his martial arts prowess would defeat anyone. He was able to defeat all world-class fighters during that era and make them become his students. 3 of Bruce Lee's students, Joe Louis, Mike Stone and Chuck Norris, have won all karate titles in the US. Both Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson are definitely legends. But who do you think could win out of a fight if they met in their primes? Mike Tyson or Bruce Lee? Who would win in a no-holds-barred street fight? Bruce Lee or Mike Tyson? A no-holds-barred fight means any of them could use anything they have and every pound they have. In 1976, Muhammad Ali fought a Japanese professional wrestler, Antonio Inoki. The fight itself was fought under special rules and it is seen as a precursor to modern MMA. The majority of the fight saw Antonio Inoki on his back kicking Muhammad Ali's leg 107 times uninhibited by the referee. This is because a particular rule was negotiated shortly before the fight, which allowed any of them to use leg without being disqualified. The fight was drawn and it was refereed by one of Bruce Lee's best friends, Gene LeBell. This fight has long been debated by the press and fans. It's not definitive but provides some evidence. If Bruce Lee is allowed to use every part of his body and attack anywhere he wants against a heavyweight opponent, don't you think he stands a big chance in winning? Please do not hesitate to leave your comment and tell us why you think like that.